Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real People, Real Health. This day I have in the studio with me, I am excited, honored, and humbled to introduce Mathew Embry, who is a filmmaker that is making a difference in people's lives, touching people's lives with inspiration, courage, and hope. I'm going to share just a quick bio on Mathew as I wait for some of you in the community to join us. Mathew Embry, MFA, is an internationally recognized documentary filmmaker. In conjunction with incredible teams, his recent directing credits include Living Proof, an official TIFF selection and distributed worldwide by Amazon Prime. Also, Painkiller and Inside the Opiate Crisis, distributed by TELUS VOD, with over 1 million YouTube views, and Global Warning, distributed by Super Channel and awaiting international distribution. Mathew Embry has also directed projects on A-list talent, including Theo Flore, Jan Arden, Roddy Piper, Manjit Minhas, and Ian Tyson. Embry's work has sold out theaters in numerous countries and has won multiple awards in Canada and the United States. Mathew, welcome to Real People, Real Health today.
No, thanks, Jay. Thanks for that kind introduction.
You're welcome. You know, we met indirectly through TMS Global Roundtable, which is Doc Tover and Rose. I watched your interview with them, and they had invited me to reach out to you so that I could bring your story forward into my viewers and listeners. And so I paid attention. I dived into, I rented Living Proof, which is your story about MS and how it's impacted your life. And then here we are today. And so what I'd like to do is invite you, Mathew, to kind of bring us back and share about your story and how your life changed at a very young age and what that has meant for you and what your passion and purpose in life is today. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, thanks again, Jay. My story, it's hopefully one that's going to inspire people to take more accountability for their own health. And that's really what I think this journey boils down to. For me, I mean, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1995 at the age of 19. And I think obviously that was a huge shock to me and to my family. But very fortunately for me, my mother was a nurse and my dad a research scientist. They got to work, and going back then, there weren't a lot of solutions for multiple sclerosis. And my dad just, he plunged into the medical library and he went to work. And what he came out with was nutritional strategies in tandem a little bit later on with high dose vitamin D supplements, exercise, and lifestyle changes were going to be the key strategies that I was going to implement to keep multiple sclerosis in control. And, that's what I did. I'm a pretty disciplined guy. I was back then. I did, I certainly didn't do the research my dad did, but I learned enough about why he was saying the things he was saying. And just in my gut, I also had a gut feeling that this was true. I haven't shared this story on too many podcasts or interviews, but something interesting that did happen is 1 month before my first attack. Okay. I almost heard a voice that told me, you got to change your diet. I can remember it. Like, it was weird, but I just had instinctual, like, inside me knew I was making choices that weren't necessarily the best for me. And then, within a month, diagnosed with MS, bang, my dad brought the program. And, here I am today, and I'm 44 years old and I'm doing fantastic, symptom free. And what I'm doing is I'm sharing the story with people like you, great people like you who are trying to reach out to people and to get the word out that there are options that you can take control of right now. And that's the story. And obviously the living proof to success of that documentary. I mean, praise God, it's been an incredible journey that way, and happy to be here to answer any of the questions.
Oh yeah. I'm going to start right here. I want to hear about what a month before you get the diagnosis, you heard an inner voice tell
Mm.
you you need to clean up your diet. What did your diet look like at age 19?
It was terrible. I mean, it was, I was eating pizza pops and drinking, literally liters of colas, microwave dinners. High fat, high sugar, high salt. I mean, you name it. And throughout high school, I would drink, liter, 2 liters of milk a day. Like, no joke. Like, I would literally bring a liter of milk to class, chocolate milk, and that was that whole milk does the body good. Campaign in Canada. I don't know if they had that in the U.S., but that was the U.S. That was a huge campaign in Canada, and that was my diet: gluten, dairy, cheese, you name it. It was not McDonald's. Like, looking back, like, not good. I mean, there's no shock that I got sick.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I too was. I was given the same. I got the same memo you got. That was my diet, except it didn't catch up to me until I was 48 and had a heart attack. But today's show is not about my story; it's about yours. So here you are, age 19. Not only your diet was really, really compromised, your health was becoming compromised at a very young age. It does take people. Well, nowadays, it actually, the pre-diabetes is a rampant epidemic in the United States, I'm sure globally. And by the time I think the average male and female are 18, 34% already have pre-diabetes. So how it was back in 1995 and how food is coming to our homes today through the supermarket supply chain is very different because of GMOs and so on and so forth. But ultimately, what I want to do is also touch on when you were 19 years old. My understanding is that you were, although your diet was lousy, you were athletic.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life. Not obviously not a pro, but a relatively high level. But I was able to keep going. I was able to be that guy, who just, ate huge amounts of Mexi Melts at Taco Bell after games. Like, I was that, I lived that life, and that was, I didn't. I mean, now I do. Looking back, didn't think it was impacting me. I just could keep going. But I do remember also too, to your point, like, I remember being maybe around 20, like just when I started the diet and learning this stuff. And I remember saying to people, man, I am lucky that I've changed, because I'm looking at my friends and I'm looking at people around me. I'm like, this is not going to be good in 20 years if you continue this. Like, I'm lucky that I got a wake up at 19, because I certainly I think this is going to, no matter, you're on a train, right? And like, if you're on that train, I don't think it ends well when you're on a certain diet. That's, again, it's not necessarily going to provide good outcomes.
Yeah. I'd like to invite, first, I want to thank our viewers for joining Mathew and I today on this incredible, important topic regarding MS. And if you have any questions for us, I'm inviting you to drop them into the comments, and we'll do our best to address some of them. Paula did ask, just curious, what foods is your biggest struggle, temptation, weak point? I know that's really for you. It's a setup question.
Yeah.
Because nutrition you figured it out with your dad's research that he was doing at that young age back in 95, that food had impacted your health. So we're going to just jump a little bit. Well, I'm going to open it up for you to answer her question. What food is your biggest struggle, and how do you manage the temptations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess probably now it's sugar. I mean, if I look back, I didn't really, the way my brain or mind operates, I just quickly correlated. I mean, I was really scared when I had my first attack, like really scared. And I knew the long-term outcomes of MS. So I was I was terrified, to be in all honesty. And my brain quickly made that link that if you eat this isn't likely going to be good for you. And so that kind of thing, like my brain it was like a Pavlov's dog scenario where I saw it bad, right? Like, I was able to get rid of the dairy and I was able to quickly eliminate it. And when I saw it, be feared, like scared of it versus temptation. But as I've gotten older, it's definitely sugar, I think. And that can come in just even dried fruit, something like that. Like it seems like it's innocuous, but there's a lot of sugar in that kind of thing. And I think, it's definitely a challenge for me, especially at the activity level that I'm at.
So do you, how do you manage it then? Do you give in? Do you eat the sugars, or is it still what I refer to as a non-negotiable? How disciplined are you?
Yeah, it's pretty non-negotiable. I know my limits. Right? I'll just stop. I was like, that's enough. Like I know exactly, not exactly, but I'm pretty good at reading my body now. I see it like a lab, and I definitely have the slogan "No cheat days," and I'm pretty adamant that I try my absolute best to keep disciplined and vigilant in that side.
Okay. Mary Kelly asked, did stress play a part? I think she's referring to the initial diagnosis at age 19.
I think so. I mean, again, that's really hard to answer with to really answer specifically. I mean, yeah, I was going through a stressful time in my life, and I did have a stressful, I guess, adolescence in some ways. But that's hard. So I think, but I've done other movies too, and I think you've seen some of them, Jay. Who I don't think any of us are immune to that, and I think it's something that we all go through. So it's a variable that I think the majority of people have very stressful times in their lives at one time or another, and I could definitely correlate my illness with adolescent stress for sure, and that's something. Again, even today I work on, right? And I think all of us do.
So now you've got the diagnosis. You learn that you need to clean up your nutrition. Meanwhile, the greatest gift perhaps your dad gave to you was that he was a doctor of geology, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he probably had the know-it-all how to research. Now, back in '95, the internet was really just in its infancy. AOL was the channel back in, I believe, in '95. There wasn't a whole lot of information available back then. What was that like for you as a young adult to have a dad that was on a truth-seeking mission to find answers for his son? What was that like for you? And did your relationship with your dad change in the early onset?
I don't think so. I mean, my dad and I have always been fairly close. We played a lot of sports together. That was kind of our relationship was really that way, and also academic and intellectually, we connected. And he definitely was a teacher to me throughout my whole life. So it felt like another part of the progression. And our family, our family has, we just have a mentality. We always have just get after it. So there's a problem, you're not going to sit around and just kind of wait. It's like, no, we're going to deal with this now, and then we're going to get on it, and then we're going to move on. And that's kind of how we operate. So it's not like it wasn't like, well, now we're done, but it kind of was. Okay, now this is finished, and we got this covered. now it's next. And then my mom drove to set up the charity, right? And then it's okay, now we're going to try to help others. And that was the next progression. But it's, and we still operate like that.
Now, at any point in the early onset, was pharmaceutical drugs something that you considered? Did you try any? Did you go on? What was your relationship early on, and what is it today?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think back then there weren't a lot of pharmacological options for multiple sclerosis, right? They were in their infancy, some of the drugs. Now, I did do one course of steroids when I had my first initial attack. I think it was 6 weeks, but no, maybe not even that long. Maybe it was 3 weeks. I can't recall. And then after that, there were drugs and trials and experiments, but my dad had hit the diet so early that it wasn't really an option. I mean, it wasn't like I was, it was up to me to what I wanted to do. And then I had a really formative experience, I think, with that as well, where I started the diet. We'd already been kind of understanding how nutrition could play a role in illness. And we went to the MS clinic, for my second follow-up appointment. I think it was my first appointment with the MS clinic, because you go from the neurologist to the MS clinic. And my dad and I were sitting in the foyer, and the neurologist came in. He said, "Okay, well, I'm a little bit late, so why don't you go grab a donut and a cup of coffee?" And I was sitting there, and I was like, "Whoa." My dad, he laughed out loud, like literally, like that man, he just laughed out loud. And the two of us just sat there, and for me, that was it. Like I never went back.
Wow.
Like I literally never went back. And I was like, well, and I'm trying not to be judgmental, because it's just what that is. And once I accepted what that model was, I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, not that that's fine, but this is what the options are here. I'm not interested in that. I'm going a different way. I have faith in what I do. Here's the site. If you want the science, we've got that posted on another website if you want to check that out. And off I went.
Wow. So you actually heard what you needed to hear, and in that moment, you said, "No, thank you."
Mm-hmm.
How soon after you changed your diet, your nutrition, did you start to see the symptoms, the flare-up, dissolve?
That's a good question. I mean, the first course of steroids did eliminate some of them, no question. Like that happened. Right. So however, though that first course did, there was an impact. And then it was slowly symptoms started to go away. It was, months, but that was fine. And I also, one thing in my journey, it's not in the movie, acupuncture was also a key part of my healing, I believe. I did a significant amount of acupuncture and cupping and that type of thing, to increase circulation and blood flow and in my back and my spine and things like that. So it was a holistic approach, right? It was not, it was a lot of things going on for me. And some of the mind stuff as well. I mean, back then, again, this wasn't as, say, fashionable, right? But I was certainly visualizing. I remember swimming and just each kind of stroke thinking myelin growing back, myelin growing back, myelin growing back, right? I wanted to have a shirt with myelin on it, right? Because that was what needed to heal. And then over time, it went away. Wow.
What you just shared is just an absolutely incredible golden nugget. Because if I may paraphrase you, what I heard you say, Mathew, is that our mindset can impact the trajectory of disease. And you had this knowing that you could do what's called biohacking. Your mindset, you created a mantra, even while you were swimming.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
To help your body heal.
Mm-hmm. I never thought of it that way, but I guess it's true. and I think that was and I agree with what you're saying. And I think it's, to add to that, it's when your mind also makes a decision to be disciplined, I think is a really important piece of that.
Mm.
And I think that's also in the mind. So when the mind says, I'm no longer eating these foods, I've seen the research that suggests that this could be problematic for me, I'm no longer doing that. And then it commits to that. And then it becomes about, the number of decisions one needs to make every single day to stay on the program is enormous. I don't think people understand how many decisions you're making to stay focused. But again, I also think there's more freedom in the discipline. So I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I really believe that. Because at one point you have to make more decisions, but on the other side you don't. So it's a balance.
Wow. What would you say to someone you meet that, whether it be MS, cancer, heart disease, autoimmune, and another type of autoimmune, which MS falls under, that says, I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling with fighting this disease because I feel like the things I need to be doing are really restrictive. It's so damn structured, and I don't like how I feel, which is really very different than what you just shared. What would you say to that person? Because what you just said is that there's freedom in the discipline. Mm-hmm. Do you think that you or somebody else can inspire somebody that is embracing or is their relationship with their diagnosis and the lifestyle changes that may in fact help their health, they feel is restrictive to them because they got to commit to change behavior. What's your take on that?
I think it's about finding new things. Okay, and now I'm going to explain that. So let's just say I feel restricted. Okay, let's talk about what are you restricted from? Let's make a list of all the things that you're restricted from. Okay, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't eat this. Okay, that's fine. Let's make that whole list. Now let's figure out an alternative to all of those things. Your pleasure centers are getting hit by that list of things that you feel restricted by, which is making you uncomfortable or sad because you can no longer do those things. So now we need to find new things for you to do. We need new experiences, new things you can eat, new things you can do, new things how you contribute. You've got to create a new life. And what I tell people, I say, well, when you are diagnosed with something, when illness hits, I'm like, okay, you know what? You tried your best in your life up to right here. But right here, now you know it didn't work. And that's okay. You tried your best. You knew you did the best you could possibly do, but now you're being told it's not working. So now you got to change. So if you want a radically different outcome in the future, you need to make radical changes now. That's how it works.
Beautiful. Love that. So if I may, what I heard you say is what you resist will persist. That's the negative relationship that you have if you're looking at the lack, what you lack, what you may lack.
Yeah.
But the alternative is that if you look at what you can gain, for those with an MS, it means that they're not going to potentially be wheelchair bound. They're going to be able to continue to walk. They're going to be able to continue to run. We'll get into a little bit later in our conversation about the woman in the documentary, the doctor, that after having the diagnosis for years, embraced nutrition as one of her protocols. And not only did she get out of a wheelchair, but she's now riding a bike again. At least that's what was shown in Living Proof, the documentary. A couple of questions that have come up. One is, I'm not sure if a Baker, if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, he or she says, did you ever take MS drugs? I don't think you did, correct?
No, just one course of steroids, of steroids.
And also ask, can your diet help people with chronic neurological Lyme disease, since it very closely mimics MS?
I get that question a lot. I mean, and the best thing to do, again, I'm not the researcher, it would just email my dad, and that's Embry@shaw.ca, Embry@shaw.ca, and he will get back to you on that one.
Okay, beautiful. Let's see if we got any more questions that come up. Paula says, that's helpful to set your mindset equals these foods are off the table, no compromise, no cheat days. Thank you. One of the ways that I love to embrace it is I call them non-negotiables. And it's really about, when I started on my own healing journey from 9 medical conditions that any one of them should have and could have taken me out back in 2015, I created a list of the things that no compromise, no cheat days, it had to become a ritual in my life. It had to become part of my lifestyle. And through those non-negotiables, it really becomes your habit, becomes your ritual, becomes your practice, which is your commitment to yourself, to healing. I understand. I believe that, there's a lot of people today in 2020 that talk about healing from disease, healing chronic long-term disease. And what's your take on healing versus remission? So for example, do you say today that you are healed of MS, or do you say that you are in remission from the symptoms of MS?
Yeah, I think that's more how I look at it. I mean, I think that the body is always in a potential disease state. Like, we're always in that state. So the question becomes, and I don't care if it's multiple sclerosis, or maybe it's depression, or maybe it's something else, you have the potential to manifest it. So so the reality is, what I'm going to do is try to get my body in the best and optimal health, no matter what. Like that's the point. And so people ask me, I say, well, I did a post once where I say, look, if there's a cure for MS tomorrow, I'm not going to change my life. Like if there's a pill that suddenly takes away multiple sclerosis, well, that's great. I mean, that would be awesome, right? For a lot of people, but I'm not going to change the way I live because suddenly maybe it's going to be obesity that I'm going to be facing in a year, or maybe it's going to be heart disease if I start changing my diet or my lifestyle, whatever the case. But when I found this discipline, this way of life, this way of living, it's about optimal health for the long term. And it's about not getting off. And then it's also putting my mind in a state where it's like, okay, I've been diagnosed with the disease. It doesn't mean that that diagnosis is going to own me for the remainder of my existence.
Beautiful. I love that. So what I just heard you say, Mathew, is that you refuse to let MS define who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
It's not who you are. Who you are is, well, who are you, Mathew Embry? If you don't raise your hand and define who you are by your disease, who is Mathew Embry?
I mean, I don't know. That's a very profound question that I continue to search for, right?
Ooh.
You know,
yeah.
For me, it's finding that inner Christ and trying to emulate that. That's that's where my search goes. And I think that, but here's something to think about when it comes to these. Well, one thing I also tell people when they call me and they've been diagnosed with MS, a new person, I say, look, like, I'm going to tell you something. This may not make sense today, but I hope it makes sense in the future. You've been chosen. You've been chosen. And that's because I believe, because I've lived it, that you have the strength to overcome this. And once you've overcome this, you have the strength, you've been chosen, you have the ability to stand up and share your story and help all these people in your network. Like you're like the node, you're like the center of this other world in which I don't really know a lot about, but you can help so many people now when you do this. Now that took me like 25 years to figure out, or 23 years to figure out for me, but I finally figured it out.
Well, you figured out that your story is more powerful than you, and that your story needs to be told in a much bigger way than just between you and your family and friends. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, but it's not just me, it's you. It's also, it's anybody who's been diagnosed with an illness or a sickness. It's your struggle, it's your journey, but through you healing, through you finding a way, and then by sharing it, by telling other people, you're going to lift those others up just by doing that. Like, and it's so, again, and that's where it's, I believe you've been chosen because you have the strength. Like you have that, and now you have a gift you can give to the world.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Amen, brother. You mentioned Christ within. And so I'm curious, what role has religion or spirituality played in your health and in your life and in managing the symptoms of MS?
I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, for the first 20 years plus, like almost zero.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a pretty strong, I wouldn't say total atheist, but like real close, like real on that side of it, right? A biological determinist and evolutionary. I think I didn't have a lot of time for religion or spirituality. Now, in the last 4 years in particular, I mean, Jesus Christ manifested himself to me, and I had a massive conversion 4 years ago, I guess now. And now it's become a key piece, if not the piece, of my well-being. And also now going back in time and figuring out, okay, hold on, this has been along here the whole way. I just couldn't see it.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's been a really eye-opening experience for me too. But now I really, and we're making a living proof sequel. And the spirituality piece will definitely be something that we get into, because it's layers, right? I mean, you know that, like, it's, you just keep peeling it back, right?
Yes. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. My spiritual mentor, he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he also chose to opt out of traditional Western medicine care, no chemo, no radiation, no surgery. And he went back home at the time of St. Thomas and began his healing journey, seeking holistic alternative choices. And it was about a year and a half later, I asked him, because his focus was on what we refer to as the four pillars: the emotional, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. It's not just one thing that can save a life, our life. It's all, we got to be focused on all four pillars
Yep.
of health. And I asked him, I said, tell me, what do you think? Now, at this point, he was NED, no evidence of disease. And, but nutrition played a massive role. He went raw vegan for, I think, a year and a half. To really, for the nutritional piece to impact his health. But I asked him, and, you know, this is a guy that ended up with a 12-pack. I mean, just went full bore, 100%, took out toxic people, places, and things from his life, and just focused on healing. And I asked him, which of the four pillars was the one that does he think saved his life? And he paused, and there was silence. And then he said, spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He said, if he hadn't embraced that, he doesn't think he'd be alive today.
Mm-hmm.
And now, much like you, I ran away from my religious faith when I was 14 years old. And I didn't look back until 2015, was when I had my first, what I'll call, spiritual experience in the hospital.
Wow. Yeah.
And since then, you know, spirituality is a huge part of my non-negotiables. It's a daily practice for me to be in prayer and meditation, early morning when I'm out on the hiking trails. But where I want to go with you, Mathew, is so here you are, many years into it. Your dad's been doing the research. You embrace nutrition. What role does the movement or exercise play? What has it played in your health?
That's huge. I mean, it's absolutely huge. I mean, the benefits of exercise are, you know, again, unquestionable in regards to blood flow and, you know, mental well-being. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on for how exercise is so important. And again, to your point, it's one of those key pillars for me. It's a discipline. And, you know, it's relatively, I mean, I've been struggling with a back injury right now, so getting through that, but it's non-negotiable. It's something I do, and I think that it's you know, it's something interesting you brought up just now. You said non-negotiable is something that I think is so important in all of the pillars, right? And I think that you know, exercise is one of those things that people are like, oh, I just got to get started. I'm like, yeah, it's super hard to get that started, but you know what's even harder is meditation for me. Maybe it's easier for other people, but that is, I mean, I have run, you know, I can run to another town and, you know, and put up, you know, exercise twice a day, but like getting myself to meditate for half an hour a day is not easy. And so this is, you know, again, part of the thing I like to share to people with people. I say, look, like spirituality for me is not something that's an easy thing to do. It's just as hard as diet. It's just as hard as exercise. All of these disciplines are very difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. And I think and don't jump to the level, like a super high level right away. Like start small. Like if you can exercise 5 minutes a day, start there. You can meditate for 5 minutes a day, start there. And then day by day, build it up, build it up, build it up, build it up. And before you know it, you've got a really strong program.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Mary Kelly says, how about run and meditate? Just keep your eyes open. Now, you know, it sounds crazy, but I'll tell you, I too have not really been able to embrace meditation sitting in quiet. But there's different types of meditation. And the one that's impacted me is I meditate in motion. I'm in a meditation space when I'm in nature, when I'm on a hike, when I'm on a trail every single morning, when I'm not also healing from injuries. And so for me, meditation is something that I'm brought to that space. I actually use instrumental music while I'm on a hike by myself in nature. The instrumental music really helps elevate me out of my head space and into my soul space or heart space. And so for me, music has really been a gateway to raising my vibration to a higher space. And basically all that means is that I get out of my thoughts, out of my thinking of future, and I'm able to just enjoy the moment in what the sacred land has in Sedona, Arizona. So that for me works. But yeah, there's so many people that struggle or challenge meditation. And I think the answer is that it's just like exercise. There's not just one way. There's many different ways to achieve, to move, to get our body, to get our lymphatic system moving, to get our parasympathetic nervous system engaged and out of the sympathetic nervous system where the unhealthy hormones are flushing our body. Mm-hmm. So there's where some inspiration, hopefully hope comes. I like to touch on the word hope because it's part of my logo here for Real People, Real Health: inspiration, courage, and hope. What is your take on hope? Does it work? Is it enough? If not, why not?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's MS Hope is like the name of the website, so I think it's a very important word. And I think the way I created the website was I tried to imagine myself at 19 when I was just diagnosed. If I could log on to a website and see someone who was at, say, 45 or 44, however I am, what would I want to see? What would give me hope in that moment? Like in that moment and fear, in that moment in terror, what's going to give me hope to get out of that? And I think that's how we created it. Now, I think that hope is the motivation. It's like, okay, this is possible, but now I got to put it to work. Like, hope's not going to help you. I hope I'm going to eat better tomorrow. No, you got to eat better tomorrow. I hope I can exercise today. No, that's not the way to think. Like, you have to exercise today, right? Because hope's not going to get you very far in the program, but I do think it's like a light. It's like a beacon. To be able to see, okay, this is possible. Like my hero is a guy named Dr. George Jelinek. I think he's about 67 right now. He's ahead of me in regards to years. But I look at him and I'm like, this guy's in tremendous shape. He gives me hope. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get that. Hope is just it's just the light. Mm-hmm. It really is the light that says, you said the word, it's possible. Mm-hmm. It is possible. However, there's part of some religions and faith is that you just gotta, like, it's not working for me. Like, why is prayer not working for me? And a lot of people will respond and say, because you got to pray more or you got to pray harder. And again, I think prayer is really a big part of the 4 pillars. However, it's not enough. We just can't pray our way. Some have had great experiences in praying their way to full health. But for most of us, we've got to take action. And action is a step after we have the feeling of hope, the inspiration of, wow, it's possible that if I change my behavior, if I take action, if I get committed, if I create non-negotiables in my life, that I can feel better, I can get better. Mm-hmm. I can improve the quality of my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Deb says, yes, don't try, just do. Yes. Mary Kelly says, keep moving, keep going. Jillian coming in from Scotland says, and spiritually will and can show through in all the disciplines and pillars. It is the strongest anchor. I love what Deb says here. Faith, hope, and love are some great things. He has given us, the greatest is love. That's a beautiful statement there, Matthew. How do you think? Now, self-care is really what we're talking about here. But tell me about self-love. How do you think self-love and/or love can impact our overall health?
Yeah, I mean, self-love is I think like it literally says on there, love yourself. So my sister, sorry, not my daughter made for me, literally
Beautiful.
like, right there.
Wow.
But I think that needs to be defined, because what frustrates me is sometimes this concept of like, okay, you have to love yourself means a glass of wine and going to the spa and relaxing. Or does it? Right? Like maybe that's going to be okay every so often, but I think loving yourself is the discipline of forcing yourself to exercise every single day. Loving yourself is choosing the right foods that are going to have the best outcomes for you. Like loving yourself is forcing yourself to sit like a dog and meditate for 15 minutes when you do not want to be sitting there first thing in the morning. I mean, I think all of these things are self-love. You know, some people like, oh, you're so disciplined, you just beat up on yourself. No. Like, that's not what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm actually loving myself, because I know that what I'm doing is going to have great outcomes in the future. And I think that's the danger I see in our current world today, where the self-love is something someone tries to sell to you. Like, love yourself. $1,500 for a spa weekend. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like, I don't know. Like, I look at it like, well, how does that, what are the outcomes? Is that better my marriage? Is that better my friendships? Is it better my body? Does it better? Like, what is it actually doing? Or am I cutting you a check and, getting a body high? And I hope I don't sound too brutal.
No, I think you're not. This is your perspective. Your perspective is your truth, and that's all that matters. Someone else can interpret what you say differently, but that's for them to work through. This is your experience with it, and I agree. I agree. We get caught up, we get hung up on new buzzwords, and then you hear, everybody's sharing it, but how many of us really understand the true essence of the meaning behind the word, or words like self-love, self-care, self-care for what's that?
Yeah, because one word that doesn't drive me crazy, but I really struggle with it, is mindfulness, right? Because I'm like, oh man, like, it's so important to be in the present, okay? Like, I get that, like, to be in the now, to be mindful. But then what are you going to do in the present? So it's like, well, I'm being mindful, so then I rob the bank. Well, no, like, that's like, fine, you were in the now and like you had the opportunity to do something, but you did the wrong thing. Yeah. So there needs to be like presence plus like an awareness of what to do. So it's does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
It's fine to be in the now, but you also have to have like a way forward of what you're going to do in the now. Yeah. So I find it's half the puzzle. Just be mindful. Well, that's half of not even half, right? It's a bit of what needs to be done to help you.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother. I want to fast forward a little bit now. So you actually developed a website called MS Hope, and take a moment here just to share a little bit about what will someone find when they go to mshope.com, and why did you launch the website?
Well, what happened is, I've got a career in filmmaking, and I've also done a lot of marketing in the past in my life to get to where I had to go. And my parents, they created a website called direct-ms.org, and I got really frustrated with how hard it was to get people to get there. And I was getting frustrated with getting the message to people, and there were some things that happened that really kind of, truthfully, it made me angry. Of like how we're not reaching enough people. And so what I did is again, it was almost like a divine intervention. It just kind of came to me, and these thoughts came, and then I just had this incredible motivation to create a really simple, user-friendly how-to. If you want to learn the strategies that I've implemented, here's how it is in the simplest way. And let's just give you the roadmap. Here are 4 easy videos to watch. Here are 4 easy PDFs that you can download, or 3, or however many there is. Here's a free cookbook. Here's a link to the movie if you want to check it out for free. Here's how you get it for free. And then if you really want to go deep, here's a link to my parents' website, which has got all of this, the science and like the real nuts and bolts of this.
Wow. Love it.
But it was really about hitting the average person who just needs some help.
Yeah. I went on a website and it was a simple website to navigate through. A lot of like basic information that can and will change the trajectory of the diagnosis and of the symptoms. I love it. What inspired you to do the film, Living Proof? And what was that experience like for you?
Well, again, I was really frustrated because we just weren't reaching enough people, and I was trying, and I was, there's some things that happened. I saw some people who were struggling. There's one person in particular really bothered me, and I knew I was a filmmaker. I'd done some relatively big films in Canada, and I knew how films could affect people. Like I just knew it. Like I knew, and here I am. God's given me this gift of being a filmmaker. I got to apply this to what I'm doing. Like I know I can reach people around the world if I knock this out. And then that was part of the journey. So MS Hope got created. That had incredible international traffic. Within 5 minutes of launching it, or a day, like incredible. Like we just like we had this Google Earth set up where you could watch when it was being visited, and we were watching. It was like ping, ping, and the globe was spinning. I was like, oh my, like what is happening here?
Beautiful.
And we watched it real time.
Yeah.
And then the movies. Then we started shooting the movie. And the movie was, it was probably one of the hardest times of my life, to be in all honesty. It was really, really hard to do it. We met a lot of patients who were suffering. It was, you watch the movie, but it's a truncated shooting period. So people maybe don't understand that, where it's like, hey, this whole thing was shot more or less in 6 weeks, like the vast majority of it. So it's like, there are scenes in there. I'm an absolute emotional wreck. You got to understand, like, I'm coming off traveling, like international travel, and I'm beat up. Like, the production process itself put me in a very vulnerable state. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, praise God. I mean, that's how that movie had to get made. I had to go through that. And now watching it back, I'm like, okay, I had to go through that suffering. Like that's part of our journey. But it really changed my life. And then once the film was done, that's when my life really, it really changed after that.
We'll get into that in a moment. But before we go there, I want to share, I watched the movie 2 times, and what I loved about the documentary was how you showed up, as you just shared. Very, very vulnerable. You gave yourself permission to break down and not turn off the camera, but allow your tears shine through in the message. One of the moments that really touched me in a very profound way was the woman that wrote a book many years earlier, and you visited her. Your 6 weeks of filming took you across the globe, over in Europe and beyond. And this one particular doctor, this I don't recall if she was a doctor or just an author, wrote a book on nutrition, and that book really was your main gateway for, I believe, for how you've been, the diet or nutrition lifestyle that you've chosen. In your interview with her, you got extremely emotional when she shared with you that she cheats and she doesn't follow it the way she used to, mm-hmm. and that her disease has progressed, and you broke down and cried. And that it makes me emotional right here, because I felt my interpretation of what you were feeling in that moment. Are you open to share, if you can go back to that moment when she shared her truth? Why did you get emotional?
Well, again, there's a lot of layers to that. I mean, I think for Judy, I mean, she was, again, what you said, like she was my beacon. Like I remember working at a health food store when her book came in, and like I remember reading her book, and like she was the one. Like if she was good, then I was going to be good. Right? Like at 20, that's how I felt. I'm like, she's good. She's beaten this.
She was your hero. Yes,
and that was it. And so then she that kind of went on the back burner. I didn't really even think about her. And then, to be honest, I didn't really even think about her really till we got to London, and we were like, serendipitously, we're like, hey, we can shoot with her. And I was like, wow, Judy Graham. Like, I was like, what the? Like, this is going to be huge for me, right? And then when I found out she wasn't doing so well, like that was really hard for me. There's some scenes that were even prior to that was really tough, that I got hit hard even before showing up there. So I was already very emotionally vulnerable, right? And I think that when she kind of revealed that, you know, in one way I talked myself into that this disease was totally gone. And that just came racing back. And it was like, no, Matthew, you got to deal with this. Like, you got this.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And there were some things, lifestyle choices in my life that I was not as sharp as I am today. I'll just tell you the truth. And you know, that self-convicting, you know what you're doing, Matthew. That's not the path, right? That voice just hit me, or just like, I'm not. Like, not that I'm like eating pizza or anything,
Right.
but you know what I mean? Like, but I'm not perfect. I'm not near perfect right now.
Yeah.
And that reality just hit. And it's like, if you don't wake up, you're risking it all, what you built to this point.
Yeah.
And that just hit me.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that and then fear hit me, where it's like, you're going down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just,
you actually fast forwarded.
Yeah.
20 years from now, 10 years from now, and saw what your life could look like if you don't stay committed and diligent and persistent in your lifestyle. And that was my interpretation. I felt your fear. I felt you're scared, you're worried in that moment, as well as feeling let down by your hero. Now,
Yeah.
I want to shift gears here, because after that scene, you interviewed a woman that is a doctor that was diagnosed with MS, and her disease had progressed, and she was in a wheelchair, I believe. Most of the time, some of the time, you interviewed her, and really share what came forward in that interview with her. What did you learn about where she was, what steps she had taken to improve her health with MS?
Yeah, I mean, that's Dr. Terry Walls, and I mean, her story is incredible, right? And she put nutrition to work, and she has created her own diet as well, right? Which is an extension of the diet on MS Hope. It's even more strict, and you know, and again, I tell people, if I had any type of problems, I would probably be exploring that diet, right? Because it's very, very strict, and it's, you know, and her journey from going from the disability she had to now where she is. And also, she doesn't know where her limits are. And that's what I loved about that interview. She's like, I don't know where I'm going to be in a month. Maybe I'll be even better than this.
Wow. Wow.
Right? I was like, you know what? That's what I think about a lot in my life. Like, where is my upper limit, right? Like, where am I going?
Yeah.
And she's out there with a book. I mean, she's doing a lot more than I am. Like, she's a doctor. She's got a book. She's got a program. She's, you know, again, a hero to me, for sure.
Well, two things come to mind. One is that she had literally, in the interview, she actually was able to not only get out of the wheelchair and walk, but finally one day woke up and said, you know what? I miss riding my bike. I want to see if I could ride a bike again.
Yeah.
And you filmed her riding her bike. I just want to also say, you know, you actually just said that she's doing more than you. And I'm going to challenge you on that, because that's just a story that you're telling yourself that she's, you know, you are a hero to so many people. You are an advocate. You are bringing your story. You brought your story to the screen. You brought your story forward. And who are we to self-judge that someone's doing more than we are? You've done an amazing job. And I could tell you that I don't have MS, but I too have multiple conditions that I have either put in remission or still working on. You don't have to have MS to embrace your message, to embrace your lessons and your learnings. You just have to have a disease that's chronic and be willing to listen and be inspired by your story and by the work that you do. And so, Mathew Embry, you are my hero today, and thank you for showing up today here with what little time we have left, because there's so many more pieces and bits to your story. I want to touch very briefly on your relationship with MS Society, because in the movie you do talk about it. You do talk about you got threatened with a letter from MS Society in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
What has your relationship been with them, and what's your overall perspective on MS Society in Canada?
Well, I mean, right now I have no relationship. I mean, the last kind of interaction, I guess, they were invited to speak on a panel with me at a relatively high profile screening of the film. They had two very high profile others on the panel. They declined. And in the statement that they gave, they said that there was inaccuracies, I believe, in what I put in the film. And I guess there is some truth to that, because in the movie we talk about how there's only 15% go to research, and I think it's actually less than that. So they got me there, right? So that I was inaccurate. So but beyond that, I mean, I just kind of hope that they take this information and they just at least give people access to it. And I think that's where my frustration is. And I see, I just kind of I still find it weird that an organization like this wouldn't be reaching out to people who are doing so well.
Yeah.
Like, I find that a bit odd.
Well, it's Matthew. It's really no different than a person who's diagnosed with cancer and chooses and given a death sentence of 6 months to a year, and chooses not to go through traditional Western medicine treatment and takes an alternative route and gets busy. And months later, they go back to the doctor and the tests show there's no cancer, NED, no evidence of disease. And the doctor's response typically is, they must have made a mistake.
Right.
In a diagnosis.
Right.
And they don't even want to know. They don't ask, is there anything that you did to reverse the disease?
Yeah. Well, I hear that kind of thing. Well, have you been misdiagnosed? I just kind of take that as a badge of honor. I'm just like, well, awesome. Like, if that's how you want to look at it, go for it. Right? Like, if that's how you want to see it, then that's cool. But,
Some people may say that. I actually read someone's review on your film. They were all really positive. I picked up one really negative one. And that we're going to always have the naysayers. We're going to always have someone that's going to question and doubt and push back and say, you have your own agenda. What is your agenda?
My agenda is to get this story out there and tell people the truth. I mean, that's it. I mean, my website's free. We're trying to put the MS, the documentary is free through Amazon Prime, because you can get a free membership for a month and watch it. My agenda is just to get the information to people. I mean, whether you do it or don't do it, that's up to you. Like, I'm not here to, force you to do something. I'm like, hey, here's my story. Here are the strategies that I put into place. If you want to go deep on the strategies, here's the science. Go check it out. It's now up to you. Like, if you want to do the drug route, go for it. If you want to do something different, like, it's totally your life, your decision. But here's what I went through. And if this can help one person, awesome. If it can help thousands of people, even better. Again, the glory, I mean, I don't want to come across like this is cliche, but I am only a messenger. I mean, I believe that. Like, I am here as a messenger to tell a truth through my journey. The glory goes to God, something well above me. Like, all I can do is tell the truth. That's all I can do. And then if you don't like it, that's okay. But then in that, I tell people, then just be cautious of people trying to sell you something. Like, just be cautious.
Beautiful. I love that, Matthew. I think the closing scene in the movie was very touching for me. You know what scene I'm referring to? The
Field of Dreams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Field of Dreams for those that may not be familiar with the Field of Dreams. In the closing scene, you took your dad to the Field of Dreams, the actual location where Field of Dreams was filmed, the baseball scene. Tell us about why you went there. Why you went there with your mom and your dad. Your mom and dad were both there. You both had a mitt and you played catch. What did Field of Dreams mean for you in your in your documentary and in your life of overcoming MS?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty loaded question. I mean, for me, I mean, how I discovered the Field of Dreams is I was making a documentary on W.P. Kinsella, who was the author of Shoeless Joe, which inspired the movie. This is years ago. And so in the process of that documentary, I went down to film the Field of Dreams, okay? And this is about 2008, 2009, maybe, 2007, I can't recall. Anyhow, I was blown away, like blown away. I couldn't believe it. I was there in the early summer. I was out there by myself with the DP, same director of photography who shot Living Proof. We're sitting out there in the cornfield up in the bleachers. It was like, of all the, say, spiritual experiences I've had in my life, that would be top 5, like top 5.
Why?
I was just overwhelmed with a sense of peace and calm and meaning. And I believe, I mean, I came to Christ and spirituality through quantum mechanics. I believe everything is spiritual. Like, I don't separate it, right? And I think that back then I didn't have that perspective, but seeing the fireflies in the cornfield and knowing the story and how the people preserved it, the dedication to preserving it in its beauty, like untouched, like they have gone out of their way to preserve something. Like it wasn't an amusement park version of like, come see the movie set. No, they maintained its beauty, right? And so
Yeah.
for me, I remember writing I think I was married at the time, but it was like the first time I was like, wow, like I actually feel a proof, like a God here. Like I don't understand this. I feel something bigger.
Wow.
And then that was, for me, that just became a point of reference for me, like a temple, for lack of a better term, like a Mecca, a location. And then when I was writing the movie, I was like, like that would be a scene that I would love. I mean, not only is that so important to me, this scene, this place, but I knew American audiences would react to it. Like I knew that story would speak to American audiences, that this wasn't just a Canadian story, that this is an international story and this is an international location. And it had all the meaning. And it had the significance of the story of the father and the son, which is part of the journey. Like my dad did the legwork. I obviously executed the program, but together we did it together. And it's dreams, right? And it's making a dream come true. Now, the fact that it was in Wisconsin, in Iowa, where we shot it was amazing because we had to go to another location because Dr. Terry Walls is close to there. So, I mean, the serendipity of that in itself is incredible. And that's where, my dad and I had the opportunity to go there and spend some time and shoot it out. And I think that there's a lot of layers to that, right? There's a lot of layers. And, if you look really closely, okay, if you look real close, when you drive up, there's a shot out the windshield. And this is when I went back and looked at the movie after I had changed spiritually. Like after I went back and looked at it with a different lens, there's a banner that says, "Welcome to Heaven."
Wow.
Like, what?
How did it feel for you when you and your dad stepped out into the field and you played catch? What was that moment like?
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. I mean, it's tough, right? Because you're making a movie. There's a lot of layers. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of layers. Like, sometimes it's kind of hard to get that. Sometimes it's hard to explain. Does that make sense? Like, because you're in the back of your head, you're still making a movie. Like, you still got people filming. You know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah. No, I get it. I get it. But let me kind of dial in.
Yeah.
At any point during that moment where you and your dad, you got your mitts and you're throwing the baseball, did you have a sense of a deeper connection with your dad in that moment? Like, wow, we've done it. We've accomplished something here bigger than us, bigger than my story, bigger than our family story.
To be honest, not then. I mean, not in that moment. Yes, afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you see the final frame of the film when it's up on the screen, but in the moment, it's difficult, right? Like I hope I'm not like shattering an illusion.
No, you're speaking your truth. But what's beautiful is that that you did have an experience. You said not in the moment, but maybe during the editing process.
Yeah.
Your story is such an incredibly beautiful story of of how your family really embraced your situation and really gave you so much support and so much guidance and so much seeking of alternative choices to dissolve your symptoms and keep your health where it's at without drug free, basically. And just a beautiful story of a family coming together and your dad's passion and purpose in that moment. It appears as though it changed. As a geologist, a huge part of his mission became all about you.
Well, I think I can see that part of the story, but I think it's even bigger.
Okay.
Like now that a lot has happened in the last year. It seems to me that what's gone on here is a lot of pieces had to come together for something much, much bigger than me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's not possible when I look statistically that my mother's a nurse, my father's a research geologist, I'm a filmmaker, my sister-in-law is a book designer. Like, you look at the pieces that it took for all of the, for lack of a better term, weapon, I think there's a better word, or let's just call it like the injection of truth to be injected into the system or the world that had to come together is enormous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's almost like a training operation that all of us had to go through. And by no means don't want to take away from what my dad did, like not at all. But it's all part of one huge puzzle piece.
Yeah. Love it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Totally. What you have the awareness of is just how the universe put all these people in your life right on time, and everybody contributed. It wasn't just one person or another. It's just everything aligned.
Yeah, and I think I think that's where the documentary is going to be very interesting, because once it all ended, like the next sequel is going to be very interesting, because once the film got out, once the cookbook got out, once the, let's say, for lack of a better term, once the information entered the system, does that make sense? It's kind of like my mother passes away, like things are just changing so radically in my life. But like, I can't not see how the war is over. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. I hope that doesn't sound too obtuse.
No, it doesn't. Speaking of wars, I want to just switch real quick here. A lot of people, when they get a diagnosis, they say, I'm battling cancer. I'm battling MS. I'm battling. What's your spin on? What's your take on the word battle? Are you battling?
You completely agree. I mean, I give a lot of credence to computer simulation theory, like a lot, right? And I in some way think that maybe it's like a Pac-Man scenario. Once you're here, the system is trying to take you out, and so it's like Running Man. How long can you survive? And I know I hope that doesn't sound too aggressive, but I've just been through this life, and this is what I've seen. And once I kind of figured that out, I'm like, okay, well, how does this system take you out? There's tons. There's diet, there's drugs, there's negative feelings, there's anger, there's the list of things that the system will do to take you out is enormous. So like when you're sick, you're on the ropes. And now you got to fight. And I think that's, and I'm not saying fight like in a physical hurt someone way. I'm just saying, okay, recognize that there's a force, a negative force coming up against you. Figure out what that negative force is. It's neither good or bad. It just is.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. Yeah.
Like, don't judge it. It's just dark energy, or however you want to say. It's the devil. However you want to, whatever word that makes sense to you.
Black magic.
Yeah, you're up against something. You're up against bad and evil, whatever word. Negative energy. For me, negative energy works best.
How have you created that invisible shield to protect yourself from what you just described?
Well, that becomes about, you said a long list of them: eliminating negative people, eliminating negative relationships, meditation, prayer, being vigilant and listening to people's speech, trying my absolute best to speak, think, act right in the truth. Like, that is trying to be vigilant in that. Those types of exercises, and then really being, for lack of a better term, mindful of what I put into my body for food, and especially how I think. Like, how I think is so important. And when those negative thoughts come in, like, it's getting rid of them. Right. And then being open. And here's a good example. Like, I don't know who you are. I just met you in the last couple of days. Like, I don't know who Jay is. I mean, but I just trust that, I'm just going to go with it and be open to speaking the truth and doing this interview and, getting it out there no matter what. And I think those types of things, like, it's about taking positive action, saying yes. And then you can defeat those negative energies. Does that make sense? Or?
Totally. Yeah. It's about showing up.
Yeah.
It's about showing up and growing up. And what I mean by that, Matthew, is the growing up part is the action. It's not giving yourself permission to be a victim for more than maybe 24 hours or 48. But at some point, whatever your setback is, because we have all experienced setbacks in our life and our relationships and our health and in our careers. But it's about not giving yourself permission to stay low for long, but to say, okay, what can I do to feel better? What do I need to do to get out of this funk?
Yeah.
That's the grow up part.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that one of the things I talk about, and whether it be my relationships, whatever, I have taken on the perspective that it's 100% my fault. It's 100% my fault. And I think
the accountability piece, right?
Yeah, it's like, if I have problems in my marriage, if I have problems with my kids, it's my fault. If I have problems at work, it's my fault. It's my fault. What am I not doing? What am I not observing? Where am I not? And it's funny. I was just saying to people, one thing I wish we had more report cards in life, right? And because I would love if my kids just gave me like, hey, you could be a better dad if. Now I got a goal. Now I have something I can work towards. And I think that self-accountability, like, once you get your mind there and you stop listening to those internal voices telling, oh, it's that person causing you. If only this person would do this. If only that person was this. And you stop thinking, no, this is me. This is me. Like, I'm screwing up. I'm the one that needs to change.
Beautiful.
Then and that's where I don't know where my limits are. And I know that sounds really, like, I literally don't know where my limits are. And I think that is amazing. But I do know if I keep getting better, I'm going to find it. Now, if I let off the clutch and I stop seeking and I stop working hard and I stop, I just kind of coast, I'm never going to find that upper limit.
Beautiful. I love that. I believe that the only enemy we have in our life is within ourselves. Our limitations are self-imposed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what we don't know, many of us, until we begin to experience, is that we're not powerful, but we actually have superpowers.
I agree. And it's about how you access them.
Yeah.
Right?
Beautiful.
But it's about how you access, right?
Yeah.
And that is, again, people are like, well, how do you do this? I mean, like, one of the things that frustrates me is prayer, right? Like, right, you're going to pray. I'm like, okay, well, hold on. Let's discuss what praying is. Like, are you begging? Is that prayer? Are you begging? Are you begging for God to do something for you? Or are you listening? Like, help me make sense. Are you asking and then you listening? And then what are you doing afterwards? I hope that doesn't sound too like.
No, it's your perspective. It's your relationship with prayer and faith.
Yeah, and then it's about access. So it's like, well, are you hearing a voice? If you're hearing a voice, what's it saying? Are you doing it? Are you actually acting on it? Okay, go. Like, are you eating right? Like, it's all those steps that better your access points to getting more information and then increasing your limits.
Yeah.
It's when you stop. That's when it's trouble. That's when the trouble sets in.
It's when you what?
When you stop.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
When you think you've arrived.
Yeah. Yeah. I once heard someone say, when someone says they're enlightened, it means it's time for them to start over because they're not enlightened. When we think we're there, where it just means that we have way more work to do. That's an ego statement. Mathew, I'd like to just take a moment here. Back in 2018, you brought a different film to the market, a documentary that I watched last evening called Painkiller. It's about the opiate crisis. What did that movie mean to you, and why did you bring that movie forward?
Yeah, that was a wonderful movie to work on. That was actually in collaboration with a company or an organization in Canada called TELUS Health, who wanted to create a piece on opioid crisis, fentanyl in particular. And, I was working with them. And so it was definitely a collaboration on that side. And, the opioid crisis it's a major problem for people all over the world. And I think it's a very misunderstood crisis. I think addiction, I've been open in other interviews. I struggled with alcoholism at one point in my life. I think that addiction is a misunderstood issue for many, many people. And I think that opioid is just one drug that leads to ruin.
Yeah.
And I think that hopefully we got that across in the piece, where it's, in this case, it's opioids, but there are a lot of other problems that people need to be aware of.
Beautiful. Mathew, as we wrap up today's interview podcast, I'd like to ask you one question,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, how has doing the movie Living Proof changed your life? And what do you know about yourself today that you didn't know prior?
Well, I mean, doing Living Proof changed my life radically in that I have a new sense of freedom now. And I think how I want to talk about that, it's almost as though I had to do this movie. Like I had to do this to be able to be set free. And once I was able to stand up and share this truth with the world and get it out to all these people, my life suddenly opened up with all these other things I get to have access to. Like I get to talk to you, and I get to do different projects, and I get to go see this stuff. And it's been a incredible journey. It's almost like a sigh of relief that finally this story got to people all over the planet, and it's growing every day. And now I don't necessarily need to worry about it and think about how we're going to do this. And it's just kind of doing it itself now. And another thing is it can't be taken back. Like once it does its course on Amazon Prime or whatever, we'll stick it up for free on YouTube. Like, it's out there. People have copies. They can rip it. Like it's done. Like it's the information. I kind of see it like, when they go into the Death Star and they take that one shot and it blows up the thing. I kind of say that's the information piece that we just shot into the world, right? And like now we did it. We can kind of take a step back now and look at other things. And for me, it's been focusing on my kids a lot more, like stuff like that. Like I've been able to shift my focus again. And what I learned about myself is that that old guy, he's gone now, right? Mm. I watched that guy die through that film.
Tell me more. What does that mean to you?
Well, I watched that guy who, got mad at the MS Society and who made videos and yelled at people, and he was the warrior guy. And he needed to be created for a period of time. And it was important for him to experience. I hope that doesn't sound too weird.
No, it doesn't. What I'm hearing you say, Mathew, is that old guy that died birthed a guy that has some inner peace and freedom and is at peace with what is, and acceptance that we can't control and change organizations and everybody, but we can impact, influence, change in society.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I don't necessarily rail against the MS Society or neurologists like I used to in the past. I just given up that. I'm just like, well, to what you just said, it's what is. And so again, this goes to my computers, like why I'm so open to computer simulation theory, because things just are. And you can either accept them or fight them. And if you fight them, you're just going to get into some quagmire of pain for yourself. Or you can just kind of accept it and then, but keep doing the work. You got to keep doing the work. You got to keep trying to get the information to people. But and watching my new life take a new journey, and that's what I'm doing now. It's a new journey, and it's see where it goes.
I said what I'd like to do now that I'm done asking you questions. I'd like for you to two things. One is tell the viewers and listeners where they can get hold of you outside of mshope.com. Is there any other way they can get hold of you? How can they watch your documentaries, the one on painkiller and Living Proof as well?
Yeah, so Living Proof is on Amazon Prime. And then if you actually go to a website called seelivingproof.com, you can buy it in a variety of ways. So you can buy it on Vimeo, YouTube. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can access it if you can't get Amazon Prime for free. That's what you get. On the opioid one, that's called Painkiller Inside the Opioid Crisis. That's just on YouTube. You can Google that all over the world, YouTube it. You're going to be able to get that. And if you're looking to get a hold of me, that's just mshope.com. I think I have my personal phone number on there, like my cell phone. So you can just call me.
All right. And I'm going to invite you to close this out, Mathew, with some words of wisdom for someone that may be listening today, live or in replay, that is either has a loved one, family or friend that's got a recent diagnosis or is in the throes of debilitating symptoms from MS or other neurological diseases. What can you share with them?
Two things. I would say wake up. The answers are likely being given to you. You just really need to be aware. And it's up to you to be looking for that truth and looking for those solutions. And that help may not necessarily be on the way. Follow the money. Make sure the choices you are making are as conflict-free as possible, and that it's on you. I mean, the person in the mirror is likely the person who's going to help you the most. And you're hearing this for a reason. Like if you're hearing me say this right now, it's because you need to hear it. And that's pretty much all I got to say today. Beautiful.
Mathew Embry, thank you so much for joining me on Real People, Real Health today. I've enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully, I know we've touched a few lives, and I wish you the best of success in continuing to share your own knowledge and experience with those that are open to explore alternative choices in their health and wellness as it relates to MS and other neurological diseases and or autoimmune disorders. Thank you so much for joining me today on Real People, Real Health. We'll catch you guys next time. Next week, I've got another episode coming in. Melissa Porter also calls Canada home. She's going to be coming in. She was in a year ago talking about where she was at with her cancer that she had and her alternative lifestyle choices. She's going to come in for an update next week on Real People, Real Health, the 22nd of the month. Again, thanks for joining me today, Mathew, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks, brother.